Did you know that there was a time when $50 bought you a full game, with no microtransactions, no advertisements, and no day one patches? But sadly those days are over because games now feel like they cost more and give you less. But why has gaming become so expensive? Let's start with the obvious. Game prices are rising. AAA titles that used to cost you $50 are now costing you $80, and that's just for the standard version. For the Deluxe Edition, $90, Ultimate Edition, over $100, and you might not even be satisfied with it. But what's the real reason prices are rising? Well, we could blame part of it on inflation, as what used to be $60 back then is about $90 today. However, we can't say that's the whole story. It's no secret that game development is a massive undertaking. Teams with hundreds of developers, along with years of work, tend to cost companies a budget you normally see for Hollywood blockbusters. In fact, big game studios will spend upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars on a single game for you to play. And if it fails, not only did they lose a bunch of money, but it could possibly bankrupt the whole company. And you're probably wondering, what are they spending their money on? First, let's start with the development process. Back then, a couple people in their garage can make a hit game. But now, big budget games are made by teams of hundreds or even thousands of people. From programmers, designers, sound engineers, artists, to nearly anything you can think of. And all of them need to be paid. Not just once, but possibly for years. Gamers today expect perfection with seamless online play, good graphics, and depending on the game, unique storytelling. Meaning there's a lot more manpower and money being put into making these games. Believe it or not, majority of a game's budget isn't spent on paying the staff. You have to pay for the tools they use, like game engines and dev kits, which oftentimes charge royalty fees to even be able to sell the game that you used it on. And the worst part is that when a game is done, spending doesn't stop, as you need to pay for more things like server infrastructure and maintenance just to keep the game running, especially if it's an online game. Then there's arguably one of the most important parts of making a game, and that's marketing. Lots of times, companies end up paying as much as it costs for them to make the game to begin with. Big advertisements like trailers, showcases, and even deals with influencers to play their game are very important, because in order for their game to succeed, they need to have people play it. All these costs are a big reason why making games is such a high risk. So in order for some companies to stay in operation if their game doesn't perform is by making themselves some sort of profit, before and during the game's launch. This means adding things like monetization, pushing for pre-orders, and most importantly, raising the price of the game itself. The goal is to secure a profit early in case the game either fails or doesn't make enough to pay for the development costs to begin with. Strategies like this are a very common thing for game studios, and a big part of it is pushing for in-game transactions. Ever notice that lots of times after buying a game, you still feel like you need to spend more, most of the time on season passes, loot boxes, DLCs, and even battle passes? That's because of a thing companies like to call game of service, meaning that instead of a one-time purchase, the goal is to get you, the gamer, locked into a constant loop of spending money, which is actually a business model used for nearly every game you've ever played. Even free-to-play games can make a company billions simply because you want a cool skin. But it's not just the games that got more expensive. In order to play the games, you need the hardware for it. Only problem is that the hardware is expensive too. A console can cost you upwards of $500, and gaming PCs sometimes thousands. Pair that with controllers, keyboard and mice, or even subscriptions for things like PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass, and you're already spending a fortune. Overall, gaming is no longer the cheap hobby that it used to be. It's now a global mainstream industry. More players means more demand, and ultimately more interest from bigger companies to join in. But that's it for this video. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe, and yeah, peace.